low. And as well as that ice, there is the likelihood of some sleet and snow for southwest England, Wales and the eastern side of England and northern Scotland. Say snow even to lower levels in some locations. As we go through the day, that mixture of rain, sleet and snow will clear the southwest. The showers will ease along the east coast, although there'll always be some. And across northern Scotland, it becomes dry. So for most, it's a dry, fine, sunny day tomorrow. But it will be cold, 3 or 4 degrees at best for most of us. At least the winds, though, will be a little lighter than that biting one that's been blowing through the day today. Then, during tomorrow evening, wet weather returns from the west, and as it hits the colder air, there'll be some snow for a time across Scotland, but even also further south over parts of England and Wales. It could, for a few hours, be a little bit of snow, mostly through the night, however. Perhaps early on Friday across East Anglia and the southeast, and quite quickly any snow will melt and turn back to rain. Quite a grey day then on Friday across the south. Rain clearing, but another spell of rain arriving in the southwest. Further north, though, Friday looks like a bright day with sunny spells and just a few showers, and turning milder across the south.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage. I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello, good evening. My name is Simon Evans, and in just a moment, 2 alleged comedians will be joining me to look at tomorrow's papers. First, here's the news.
Good evening, I'm Tamsin Roberts. These are the latest headlines. The former US President Donald Trump has hinted about running for office again. Speaking exclusively to Nigel Farage in his first British interview since leaving the White House, he discussed his intentions for 2024.
Why would a man who's got all the things you've got, great family, wonderful life, why on earth would he consider going back into that hell again?
If you love the country, you have no choice. It's not a question, it's just this is a wonderful, beautiful life. But I like that too because I was helping people. That's why I did it. And I think you'll be happy in the future too.
Well, you can watch the full interview online at gbnews.uk. The US has confirmed its first case of the Omicron variant of coronavirus. The country's chief medical advisor says it was identified in California. The traveller returned to the States from South Africa at the end of last month. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says it'll have more information about the Omicron variant within days. The chief scientist thinks current vaccines will be effective against any new variants of coronavirus. At least 23 countries, including the UK, have now reported Omicron cases, and the WHO expects that number to rise.
Know that it's people above 45 with underlying comorbidities who are at highest risk of developing severe disease after getting infection, whether it's Omicron or Delta or any of the variants. And we know that vaccines are likely to have some protection. We still need to find out if there's any loss of protection, but we think vaccines will still protect against severe disease.
A 15-year-old boy has been charged with murder and terrorism after a high school shooting that killed 4 students in Michigan. Ethan Crumbly's parents were called to Oxford High School over concerning behaviour in the classroom just hours before. Prosecutors say the shooting that happened yesterday was premeditated. So Keir Starmer has accused the Prime Minister of failing to deliver on NHS targets after promising to build 40 new hospitals. But Boris Johnson denied claims that the government's hospital building plan is unachievable. The Labour leader also criticised the Prime Minister for appearing to break lockdown rules last year after reports Christmas parties were held in Downing Street. The Women's Tennis Association has suspended tournaments in China due to worries over the safety of player Peng Shuai. There's a widespread concern for Peng after she disappeared from public view last month. The tennis player posted a message on social media accusing China's former vice premier of sexual assault. Well, those are the top stories. Now, back to headliners.
Good evening, my name's Simon Evans and welcome to Headliners, the show in which we look at the best of tomorrow's papers tonight. There was a time when Christmas started in December, when Easter eggs appeared on our shelves only in March and newspapers arrived on the morning of the date of publication. But no more. Tomorrow's papers are now available to us and are very much the night before the morning after. So before we meet tonight's guests, here are tomorrow's headlines tonight. The first up we have is the Daily Mail. Stop being Christmas killjoys, ministers. And Ghislaine victim, I was on Epstein jet with Andrew. They also have a story about why nothing is as subtly sexy as going backless. The end of the road for Roe versus Wade is on the front cover of The Independent. That is a story, of course, about the highly controversial abortion legislation, which never seems to quite get settled in America. And their big story from the UK point of view, Omicron could be largest spike yet, warn advisors. Could also be the least large, I imagine, but there we are. 2 more rounds of booster jabs ordered, according to the Daily Telegraph. And also a story we will be covering, Macron calls Johnson un clown, or possibly unclown. That has been illustrated, you would think, by a picture of a clown, but if you look closer, that is actually the Countess of Wessex, who is attending a charity event and has just been caught with an unfortunately clown-like headdress. The Guardian has GPs may stop monitoring millions of patients due to COVID jab drive. I don't know what the COVID jab drive is. It sounds a little bit like an updated wish drive, possibly. Claim of SOS calls from boat in Channel and a photograph of a tennis star. That's Johanna Konta, who has announced her retirement. She has got to live her dreams, it seems. Professional tennis would have been among them for many of us, but she's moving on. The Financial Times has US delays deal to lift Trump-era steel tariffs over Northern Ireland fears. One of those headlines that regularly appear on the Financial Times that I may as well be delivered in Vogue on, for all it means to me. And judges weigh abortion bans. That is going back to the story about abortions in the US. And the Mirror have gone with booze, nibbles and party games until early hours. Well, tonight my guests are Rona Cameron and Andrew Doyle. Andrew, of course, normally the show's producer, and now coming in front of the desk. In fact, you're a bit of a star for GB News.
Well, yeah, I mean, they see me a lot here, but so I thought I'd insert myself here as well. You can't get enough of me. That's how vain I am.
You're watching Headliners, ladies and gentlemen, and we now have a sting, I believe. I stomped on the sting. You've got to give them a chance to have the sting. Also joined this evening by Rona Cameron. How are you, Rona?
Yeah, I'm average, thanks.
Average. Well, that's all that can be expected
The
at this
average
time
is
of
the
year.
new good, yeah.
So who is going to kick us off? I believe it's you, Rona, with the first story of the evening.
It
is Hands Across the Channel.
That's right, Chanel. This is a story in the Express. Macron sensationally calls Boris Johnson a clown, as you previously mentioned, as Britain described as a circus. That's a fair sum up, I would say. So this is about the ongoing battle as relations turned even more merde with France lately, about the appalling migrant crises. Recently, 27 people lost their lives in the perilous journey across the Channel. We've seen record numbers. 25,000 people made that treacherous crossing in 2021, which is...
And 27 who died last week, is that right?
Yep, 27 drowned on the 24th of November. So there's a blaming each other's side going on here with
and
the
I'm
UK and
sensing,
France.
Rona, with your Scottish allegiance, that this is the old alliance is kicking in here and you're taking France's part in this one, are you?
Well, I am, but it's not because of my Scottishness. I'm adopted, don't forget, so
Okay.
I'm a mongrel and in-betweeny.
You don't know where you're
from? I don't
from
belong anywhere.
No,
I belong
okay.
to Venus, planet Venus, which is
Okay.
where I'm from.
Okay.
So, but yes, I am taking the French side in this, of course.
Go on.
Boris Johnson did that very oafish thing of, as we know, showing everybody the letter he had
publishing
written.
the letter on Twitter.
That was the letter he wrote to Macron, though, right?
Yes.
Not a private letter that Macron
Yes,
had
but
written to him.
it's not really diplomatic. It's not really what you do, but it's a sort of, a rather sort of oafish gesture, I think.
But then the French disinvited Priti Patel as a sort of retaliatory thing, and it does feel a bit like this is like a bunch of infants in the creche squabbling, and I don't like it when politicians do this. Is there not a better way to criticise Johnson's policy than calling him un clown?
Maybe clown has a different meaning in French, though. It may be one of these things that's lost in translation. It might be slightly like a chanson or something. It might be a slight...
Well, I think we all know that Boris Johnson's always been bad with French letters, so...
Very good.
I've been waiting a week to say that. I don't really do jokes, but there you go, there's one.
So what do you think, Andrew?
Well,
you would like to see...
Well, I don't like politicians behaving like this in this way, just throwing insults. I think it degrades it. I think it reminds me of, when Kim Jong-un called Donald Trump old, and then Donald Trump called him fat. And I thought this is the kind of thing we left behind at adolescence, isn't it? And I'd rather, and also let's not forget, Johnson is likely to retaliate if he's called a clown. This is the man who wrote that limerick suggesting that Erdogan had sex with a goat. So he's capable of that kind of level if you push him to it. And I just think, look, actually, this is quite serious. People are losing their lives when they're crossing the Channel. Why don't we just deal with the issues,
Yeah, I completely agree. But on this occasion, I would say for Macron to say it is very sad to see a great country with which
Are
we
you doing
could
his
do
accent now?
so much. It's very
I
sad
can't
to
tell,
see a great country which we could do so much led by a clown.
It's like he's here.
He said we could do so much with, which I think is a bit sinister. Like it's like, was he thinking of us as Lebensraum?
No,
I'm not sure I like that.
I think on this occasion that is so accurate. I think the fact that he is, a major leader.
Yes.
I think that is very important that you said that, because we are indeed a circus. Used to be America, but now it's Britain.
Do you think, though, that there's an element of revenge here, an element of retaliation? Because Macron has continually been accused of trying to get revenge ever since we voted Brexit, basically.
They all are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to, or the implication is that he wants to punish the UK for having the temerity to vote to leave.
Yes.
And, we saw this with France withholding the vaccine deliveries. We've had with the fishing row. I mean, that's been sort of levelled at him, that he's just trying to get back.
Not just withholding vaccine deliveries, but also bad-mouthing AstraZeneca.
Right, and saying it didn't work.
Yeah.
Exactly, based on no evidence. So, I mean, to me...
Yeah, that was very...
It's very bad. It's not just about the throwing of insults.
The returns agreement.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
but if you're framing policies on the basis of revenge, then that just seems to me like an extension of the mudslinging.
Can I float a suggestion? I think he's trying to appear to be a little bit more of a machismo kind of president at the moment, just because he knows he's coming up to the elections and he is facing increased and renewed attacks from the right. And there is this kind of prospect always of France slipping into civil war. I know people have been talking about it for, well, I mean, it's always been on the verge of civil war, certainly since 1968. But there's always that kind of sense that there's something simmering more fundamentally beneath the surface in France.
I feel like with French politics, anything could happen. You know, like even with Macron coming out of nowhere and winning, that was in itself a surprise. But now with this new guy, Zemmour, escalating through the polls and completely decimating Le Pen. It's like...
And he even looks a bit like Charles Aznavour as well, which I think is going to win him at least 10%.
Artist.
And absolutely, he was an Armenian, of course, whereas Zemmour is an Algerian Jew, which has the same kind of vibe for me.
Well, we can't...
I haven't looked into his politics yet. They may well be distasteful.
It just makes me... Well, I mean, he himself, of course, gave the finger, didn't he, to a journalist the other day.
Yeah.
So he himself is this is the level of politics now. But with
they're feisty.
They're feisty, and it makes me nervous when I can't predict what's going to happen.
No.
That's
Now this is that's a very good lead into the next story, which is about this appalling shooting that happened a while ago. And at the time, this absolutely gripped the world's attention, and then seems to have released it. But now it's cooking up again.
It's coming back again. Yeah. This is in the Guardian. This is about Alec Baldwin because he's just done an interview about this. Right. This is his first interview.
Yeah.
Since this horrible tragedy, and it's on set for a Western where Helena Hutchins, the director of photography, was sadly killed when the gun discharged. And the gun was handed to Alec Baldwin, and he was told it was a cold gun, which is the sort of movie lingo for, it's not dangerous.
I've actually been on a set. A friend of mine was a props master in Vancouver, and I went to visit him and was invited to come and attend it. It was one of lots of straight-to-video thrillers he was doing. But the main thing I remember was how urgently they would shout, "Guns are hot."
Yes.
And even then they're only loaded with blanks, but they are extraordinarily... Anyway, we have a clip of this interview to watch now briefly, I think.
Described it as a 1 in a trillion shot, and the gun was in your hand. How do you come to terms with that? It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
So that's a pretty extraordinary... well, I'm going to say, what is it? He's not even... It doesn't sound like a claim. He's just simply asserting it as a bare fact. But
yes,
that's new, isn't it? The idea that he didn't pull the trigger.
This is brand new. So this has just come out from this interview now that he's claiming that he didn't pull the trigger at all, almost as though it kind of went off in his hands. And I don't know about the feasibility of that or what.
What do you think?
I don't understand. I mean, it's this is so bizarre. It's like it's horrific because it's real life, but it's almost like some corny sort of Columbo.
Everyone has said I think it actually literally was a Columbo plot.
Right, has everyone said that?
I think it's in this. Well, no, it's not. I'm not accusing you of plagiarism.
But no one
genuinely was a Columbo plot.
But no one said French Letter.
No, you're in with that. I think the thing about it is that there is the stories have emerged through various sort of grapevines, and one of them concerned somebody who was on set. I cannot remember who it was. Who was a bit of a tearaway. Who would enjoy using prop guns to do target practice with live rounds.
I mean, it's
So it could easily have ended up from that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, one of the issues with this is they had a very, very young person who was in charge of the guns. I think she was 23 or something like that. And movie sets have been so hot on. Have you just alluded to? They're so sort of careful about this stuff. I think probably ever since the death of Brandon Lee, of course, where he was shot in the filming of The Crow, and it's such a rare thing to happen. But then you watch that interview. The Guardian's sort of basically talked about this particular interview for ABC. And you watch the interview, and you do remember this is a very human tragedy. Of course, there's the victim, but to have inadvertently caused someone's death must be one of the most appalling things to live with. And I found the whole thing quite distasteful. I found it quite distasteful the way elements of the right have gloated about this, because, of course, Alec Baldwin is very anti-Trump, very anti-gun, famously. And, of course, people have dug up his old tweets talking about how I wonder what it feels like to wrongfully shoot someone, and sort of retweeted it and gloated about it. I find that kind of schadenfreude really inhumane, actually. And so watching the interview there, it does remind you that actually there are people involved here.
He looks absolutely dreadful, and he's going to be traumatised forever.
Yeah.
And it's an appalling situation. I can't understand what's happened. He said there was no live bullets.
I think no one
and
knows,
this issue now, there's been a big legal briefing, I mean, obviously, and now he is saying that line, I did not pull the trigger. I've never pulled the trigger on a gun, so there's something...
I have to say, I don't wish him any ill, but I remain agnostic on the truth of that. I am not absolutely convinced, and he may have convinced himself that it's true. Well, it may be the only way he's getting any sleep. He may have just said, there's no way, I wouldn't have done that. But, guns don't just fire. I mean,
don't,
they really don't. That doesn't happen.
It's perfectly possible that he did pull the trigger, but remembers or has convinced himself that he didn't. It's perfectly possible. We don't know, do we?
Well, it's exactly. We don't know, but I remain agnostic. He's a great actor, and that isn't always necessarily in his favour. Rona, the Daily Mail has the Trump hinting that he'll run again. This is, of course, a story which the GB News brand is
yes, that's right.
Is largely celebrating.
With its very own Nigel Farage. Farage, who went out there and talked to Trump to what can I say? Two dubious men talking to each other.
Not a fan then, right?
Trump. Well, look. You know, we can talk about some of Trump's policies, and we can talk about the fact that, you know, was the election rigged, which of course he is still claiming. We can talk about the fact that a lot of Americans wanted to vote for him because he's seen as strengthening the military, you know, bringing down price. You know, he's the champion of many blue-collar workers, you know, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my view is that, like other leaders in the world today, Putin, Bolsonaro, and there have been many, of course, since the beginning of time. This is a man who suffers from extreme grandiosity and low self-esteem, and I'm totally, which is the reverse of grandiosity. And we know we're
going to have a quick look at the clip from the interview now and
look
see
at
whether
the grandiosity.
That's it.
If you love the country, you have no choice. It's not a question. It's just this is a wonderful, beautiful life. But I like that too because I was helping people. That's why I did it. And I think you'll be happy in the future too.
Yep. He's slagging off Boris Johnson. Well, not slagging off, but he's saying, you know, he's advising him. Yes, but he's advising him it would be a bad mistake to make this, you know, to go with the whole wind combine. You know, he's just, you know, he's the leader of the world, you know, and he knows he's this wise man, and he's.
Don't you think it would be quite an extraordinary situation? I think there is something interesting going on here. If Boris Johnson, if Donald Trump were to run a second time, for a start, it would be the first plausible second term after an intervening term from another president that I think ever, and certainly in the modern era. And secondly, it would be, much more importantly, he would be running from a position in which he's essentially been excluded from all the social media platforms that enabled him to win the first time. It feels like he genuinely would be going, whether you believe in that narrative or not, it's only been reinforced. He would be going from the outside. He's going up against a kind of establishment that involves media, academia, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Twitter, Facebook. They've all combined to try and exclude him, not merely to defeat him, but to actually eliminate him from the conversation. And he is still polling better than Biden. Now, that's surely telling you something.
Well, I mean, he himself, didn't Trump say that he won because of Twitter?
Yeah.
And then, you know, we've heard sort of social media moguls saying that they regretted the fact that they helped him. They didn't deliberately help him, but of course the platform enabled him to spread his message and cut through. But like you say, he's still polling well. Yeah. And I can't think what the Democrat... I mean, I don't think Biden's going to run again. That's not going to happen.
I'm not at all sure he's going to make it to the end.
Right. So
I mean, seriously, I don't see that.
I think you're right. So if he does run again... I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because earlier in the year, didn't Trump say he would run again if Meghan Markle was running, as that would sort of push it, spur him on.
See, this is the thing. The problem is, of course, it's entertaining, and you know, and people like to see big characters, big strong characters, particularly big strong men, big extreme characters, and it all comes back to being children wanting a big sort of vibrant, strong daddy. You know, it's a psychological reason for everything. His niece, I've forgotten her name, the lesbian. I can say the lesbian.
You're allowed to say that.
I'm allowed to say the lesbian. Wrote a book. She's a psychologist, and she basically spilt the beans. Well, she deconstructed the psychopathology of the Trumps and how he had been very... No, listen, hang on, just 1 second. He'd been very, very neglected when he was young. His brother had addiction problems.
Can I ask you, do you see the world's politics through that prism?
Yes, of course, because we're human beings, OK? Yeah. And legislation is a psychological form of acting out.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so if you're if you're working in a butcher's shop and you're acting out your childhood stuff, the chances are you're not going to affect the community at large in the world that much. But if you're in a position
So do you
of
choose
power,
a candidate that you... I mean, would you prefer Biden simply because you think his psychopathology is less sort of
we were
inflamed?
talking about the Clintons earlier before we came on, you and I, in the little green room there, and we were saying that they are a very dodgy pair. But, you know, they got away with...
Well, Lyndon B. Johnson, there was a poll... We've got to go to the weather in a minute, but there was a poll just before Trump was elected, ironically, so he wasn't included, but the American Psychological Association, the top, heavyweight body, were asked, massive poll, to rank presidents of the 20th and 21st century in order of their narcissism, the extent to which they displayed narcissistic tendencies. And by far, absolutely, way ahead of all the opposition, Lyndon B. Johnson was number one, who I would think probably most people on the left would regard as having put through the most important, reforming and progressive legislation of the century.
I just avoid it. I just avoid the kind of trying to fight my life.
You can't avoid it because it's everything. It is our lives. It's it's how we relate to each other. It's how
we have to go to the
people.
weather now, Rona.
It's very important.
Terribly sorry about
I think you're
that.
being a bit patronising about that,
I don't know,
Simon.
but we are going to the weather.
I think you're hiding away from your own demons there.
Oh, well, maybe. We're going to take a break. We'll be back very shortly with the stories from inside the newspapers, and Rona's couch will be analysing them to see what they tell us about the psychopathologies involved.
That's what you need on the channel. That's the show that's missing. I'll do it.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. Things turning cold out there right now. Frosty for many by morning, and there is the potential for things to be a bit slippery as well. There are ice warnings issued and a little bit of snow in some spots. This area of low pressure is moving away, but it's opened the door to cold air driving south from the Arctic. And where we've got these little weather fronts, they will enhance the showers, and that combination of showers and cold air could lead to some icy conditions. Already across northern Scotland, we've got some snow showers. Down the eastern side of England, a mixture of rain, sleet and snow showers, and the potential also through parts of Wales. You could wake up to a covering here, maybe even into the Midlands, and later on through the night across the southwest of England. So we do have that ice warning in place as temperatures drop down close to freezing. Even in towns and cities, rural areas will be well below. And as well as that ice, there is the likelihood of some sleet and snow for southwest England, Wales and the eastern side of England and northern Scotland. Say snow even to lower levels in some locations. As we go through the day, that mixture of rain, sleet and snow will clear the southwest. The showers will ease along the east coast, although there will always be some. And across northern Scotland, it becomes dry. So for most, it's a dry, fine, sunny day tomorrow. But it will be cold, 3 or 4 degrees at best for most of us. At least the winds, though, will be a little lighter than that biting one that's been blowing through the day today. Then, during tomorrow evening, wet weather returns from the west, and as it hits the colder air, there'll be some snow for a time across Scotland, but even also further south over parts of England and Wales. It could, for a few hours, be a little bit of snow, mostly through the night, however. Perhaps early on Friday across East Anglia and the southeast, and quite quickly any snow will melt and turn back to rain. Quite a grey day then on Friday across the south. Rain clearing, but another spell of rain arriving in the southwest. Further north, though, Friday looks like a bright day with sunny spells and just a few showers, and turning milder across the south.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, and with me are Andrew Doyle and Rona Cameron. We've done the front pages. Let's take a look inside. It's World AIDS Day, and Prince Harry has compared HIV and the way it's been handled by the world's authorities to the COVID pandemic. This is in the Mail, I believe.
This is in the Mail. This is a story about a video that Prince Harry has put out in association with this group called the People's Vaccine Alliance, and people might be confused by the idea of a people's vaccine. What this relates to is the fact that there are that it should be perceived as a global pandemic which requires a global solution. So in other words, we need to get a vaccine to absolutely everyone.
Sounds more like PVC than PVA.
PVC would be it would be a good acronym for that. He's actually suggesting that the reason why we're not having a successful transnational distribution of the vaccine is because of corporate greed, he says. Corporate greed and political failure. And he's talking about, you know, the idea that companies are withholding patents, they're not sharing, well, I'm not an epidemiologist, but the recipe for, you know, keeping it all to yourself because they ultimately want to make money out of it. And he's saying that we shouldn't do that. There are lots of legitimate points to be made here. But on the other hand, you could say, well, you know, we are vaccinating very young people who are at no risk of the virus. Could we not be sharing our vaccines in that way? I
do know for a fact that this flared up briefly when the new variant emerged from, some say South Africa, some say Botswana, but anyway, that part of the global south. And there was an immediate, oh, you see, this is because we've been withholding our vaccines and we've been coveting them and we've not shared them with the world's poor. And then actually it came out the South African government have been saying, stop sending us vaccines. We don't want any more because people are refusing to take them.
Big vaccine hesitancy in some of those countries. Exactly. So I'm not
possibly because, of course, they have had decades of big pharma getting them, you know, maybe not addicted, but reliant at any rate to whatever degree.
And but I'm also unsure about the utility of making the comparison with HIV.
No.
You know, because I think it's hyperbolic, right? Because when he's talking about this pandemic in relation to HIV, well, HIV had a much higher mortality rate. It was also so closely connected to the stigmatization of a certain minority group. It was a very different kind of thing. Yeah. I feel like, you know, with the world we live in now with social media, everything's hyperbolic. You know, everyone on Twitter is a Nazi if they slightly stray from the, you know.
Well, what they've done is they've seen that HIV and AIDS has that emotive kind of tug,
right?
Which is precisely because it was associated with beautiful young men suddenly becoming horrifically, you know, disfigured by it and then dying. I mean, it couldn't have been a more viscerally horrific disease. And they're probably trying to make that kind of
I did feel at the beginning of the pandemic, I did find myself thinking when everyone began to talk about large-scale loss and the trauma and what medical staff were going through, and people were hopelessly, you know, felt helpless, searching for a way out of this, and just.
Sorry, just
communities and people who had never experienced that kind of collective trauma did remind me of. I mean, I'm not obviously a gay man, but in that period in my young life in the late 80s in Edinburgh, I mean, just even the loss.
It is slightly
the guys who were just there and then just gone. You know,
I mean, it is different in stuff. Like I remember my supervisor at university. he said to me, you know, well, he has no friends left because they all died during the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
And that's not the same as COVID, which has a relatively low mortality rate, you know, much lower. And
much more end-of-life weighted as well.
Right,
I mean, this
exactly.
does seem to be an element of it that is rarely discussed. But I just want to, if you're going to make that comparison, one thing I have always found quite intriguing, and I'd be interested to get your views on this. When AIDS first became, obviously, it was like sweeping through the gay community, I assume the conversation was had, do we close down the nightclubs? Do we make anal sex illegal? You know,
it was interesting because when Larry Kramer wrote about this, and he wrote a play about it called The Normal Heart. And his view was, it's a brilliant play. And his view, he was criticised by a lot of people within the gay community because what he was effectively saying is we need to be more responsible and not have casual sex. And that, of course, it was so much part of the gay identity, the sort of Fire Island culture, that actually gay people started attacking Kramer for this idea. So it is a difficult one.
And it also fueled the fire of many, you know, very reactive right-wing people at the time to
in Christian groups.
I mean, in Scotland it was Brian Souter who was I like to remind people who was the SNP's main donor. He's sort of sidelined now. But I said it to his face. I met him in the independence debate, and I did have to confront him. He you know, when Clause 28 came out, of course, there was all this homophobia around, came out during the whole AIDS pandemic, and you know,
Can I just ask, what do you think in terms of Prince Harry getting involved with this? It does feel a bit like he's jumping on a bandwagon.
No, not at all.
You're happy with that?
I am absolutely happy with it. Well, happy with it. I'm not happy with it, but I'm not unhappy with it. I think it's understandable, given that his mother Princess Diana did something so important. You know, it was an iconic moment when she hugged that guy, that man.
They're actually playing
dying
the clips
in
of
a hospital.
Diana with her AIDS work in this video that we're talking about now, that the Mail's referring to. So there is that comparison being explicitly made.
But that's obviously the runners of the charity, the owners of the leaders of the charity have identified Harry for that purpose as being probably the best.
Of course, but I don't think he. I mean, just to part company with Rona on this a bit, I don't think he's the best champion for this, because whenever I see him on these kind of causes, it just reeks of insincerity to me and posturing, and you know, we associate.
Serious, you really think that's insincere, and he's not driven by the legacy his mother.
I don't think it's insincere. What I'm saying is that because of the way that he and Meghan have behaved on so many of these sort of social issues, it means that we look at him whenever he appears, we sort of cringe a bit. Like, is this just another opportunity for him?
I mean, I don't doubt his sincerity of his emotion. What I doubt is his grasp of the issues and the complexities of the issues. For instance, at one point in the same speech, he is saying, "Let's celebrate the people who managed to create the pharmaceutical advances that mean that HIV is no longer a death sentence." Now, well, that's fantastic, but those are the very people that 3 paragraphs earlier he is accusing of profiteering. I mean, that is how that happened.
He has a point insofar as the pharmaceutical companies in the early days of the HIV crisis were withholding or making it so expensive, prohibitively expensive for third world countries who needed it the most. So there is a comparison to be made, but you know, I balk a little bit at the comparison just because of the severity of the AIDS crisis.
I think we're going to move on. We've got the Telegraph now, and somebody has been tasered after breaching security in Parliament. This feels like a bit like relief. This is almost a skateboarding dog by comparison with an pandemic.
Yes, a man's been arrested. This is a story running in the Telegraph. One of the Palace of Westminster's main entrances was sealed off after a man broke into the parliamentary estate. The police obviously were deployed, and this was at Wednesday afternoon. The guy was pinned down, and he was believed to have been shouting for a lawyer and claiming that he'd been assaulted sexually by 50 guys.
But was he claiming that it had happened there as he was being arrested?
Well,
he sounds a bit unhinged.
Well, if you know, about a year or so ago, I was walking down that way, and I did see one of the monuments. I can't remember, menopause, and they can't remember names, can't remember letters.
Monuments.
French, only French letters, and there was a sort of there was lots of letters and flowers. As a sort of spat out there a bit, a tribute, a sort of for all the people who had been alleged to have been victims of the Westminster paedophile ring, down there, like a little homage, like a little
But a lot of that...
Letters and flowers put by a statue.
Was a fabrication by a fantasist called
Yes,
Carl
yes,
Beach.
yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
But,
you know, I mean...
I don't know. That's what I thought of, personally.
Yeah.
So what is this tied in with that? Is he part of that?
Well, they don't know yet.
Well, actually, that's a very good point. Maybe that's why he's saying this. Because when I read that, I thought, what on earth is he talking about?
You think he means as part of a paedophile ring, then?
So potentially, but we just don't know. But the thing that strikes me about this is, why is the security so lax that he can just do this? I mean, this reminds me, who was the man who managed to just climb up into the Queen's bedroom?
Yeah,
Michael Fagan, wasn't it?
Yeah, and just have a chat with her, and apparently she was really good.
Twice.
And he quite liked him by all accounts.
They handled that very well in The Crown, I thought, that scene.
Yes. Oh, well, I haven't watched
very
The Crown,
good. A real good build-up, you know, getting ready in his flat, putting on his parker. Yeah, it was... It was a really fantastic
It was like the British version of Taxi Driver, wasn't it?
It really was. Yeah, it was like sort of...
A very English
sort of
taxi
South
driver.
London Council Estate Travis Bickle, you know. But without...
Right, it is time for an ad break, ladies and gentlemen. We will be seeing you back here in a moment after this word from our sponsors.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners, the show in which we look through tomorrow's papers tonight. With me are Andrew Doyle and Rona Cameron, and this next one is in the mail. Rona, you have this story about an inheritance, I believe.
Oh, right.
I've changed the order there a bit randomly, but...
let me finger my leaflets.
The illiterate builder, and I say that not as a slur, but as a genuine description of his inability to read his own will, is the accusation.
Ah, OK, sorry, that was a bit down. I've got my things jumbled up. But yes, as I said, as I finger my leaflets, let me sort of blab on about the fact that this is
been to Peppa Pig lately, have you?
Yeah, I thought that was Boris Johnson's tribute to menopause, to be fair. And no, I won't stop going on about it. It's important. So, yeah, I mean, we've all heard horrific stories of siblings, sibling rivalry, siblings at war. You know, a parent dies and all hell breaks loose regarding inheritance, will, or kids that are just treated appallingly after their parents die. I mean, I've known people in my own family who've looked after people and then suddenly they're left nothing. Who can explain? But this is about 100 million, I think it's 100 million, I'm dyscalculate.
It is 100 million.
I was locked in a classroom in the 70s. So this is about siblings at war, this story in the Mail, over a barely literate father's estate. So this property tycoon quit school at 12 and he made an absolute fortune. His name is Kevin Reeves. He had no formal education. He was pretty illiterate, had a really rough start in life, but he made an absolute ton of money. So he's left 80% of his fortune to Louise Reeves, who's 35, the rest to his daughter Lisa. But the problem lies with his son, Bill Reeves, who's suing him for a larger share of his father's estate, because he was effectively kind of written out of this.
So he had, as far as I understand, he had two sons, one of whom he was actually estranged from, but there was no reason to believe that the other son, he had any kind of hostility.
And the implication is that the older sister sort of wangled her way.
Yeah, there's some manipulation.
Yeah. So, and that's what the conflict is all about. And then his lawyer, Bill Reeves' lawyer, is sort of saying, well, he was illiterate.
Yeah.
So there's no way he could have understood the will. I mean, I don't know, maybe he just didn't like him, isn't that possible? That because all parents have a least favourite child, and if you're going to get your own back, do it in the will, because then you're dead afterwards.
It has to be said, I think a large number of the world's millionaires would probably have been barely able to scratch an X at the bottom of a will at the end of it. They aren't all massively lettered individuals.
Well, you know what I don't trust, though, is that the lawyer on behalf of the elder sister is sort of saying that there's no way that he was illiterate, that he was fully literate, even though he spelt the name Lisa, his own daughter's name, wrong on 3 different occasions.
Well, he was a property tycoon. Did he spell it L-E-A-S-E-R?
He just kept misspelling. It's not like she was called Clytemnestra or something. That is an easy word to spell. So I think
wonderful choice of.
Thank
you very much. I love a bit of classical.
But I think he must be illiterate if he can't spell these. So I think they've got a case here.
I would love to know how you make 100 million in property without having any formal education. Not necessarily being able to read books for pleasure, but you must be able to have some grasp of. I mean, does school actually do nothing for you?
That's the lesson from this story. Clearly. Yeah,
leaves it at 12. That's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
The next one we have up is from The Guardian, and this is a story he crops up with an extraordinarily regular basis, one of the world's great self-publicists, Mr. Elon Musk.
Yes, so Elon Musk, who is currently facing a lot of lawsuits regarding claims of harassment at the Tesla plant from various employees. And
sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment, yes.
Well, some of that,
also accusations of racial abuse. There's all sorts of things going on here.
Wow.
Not directed at Elon Musk himself, but presumably other employees within the plant. But nonetheless, these are whistleblowers, right? And these are people who are blowing the whistle on the company. So his response has been to tweet a joke about it.
And actually to launch a whistle, I think. You can buy a whistle.
But that's his sort of trolling joke. He's saying, come and buy this whistle, this sort of Elon Musk Tesla-themed whistle. He said, don't waste your money on the new Apple cloth.
Which is fairly good advice.
That's good advice.
An $18 microfiber cloth.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he's got a point there. This whistle that he's selling is £38, so $50. And he's saying, blow the whistle. Here it is. He's urged his followers on Twitter to blow the whistle on Tesla, ! Selling his cyber whistle. Even though his company is currently going through these laws, it's a very flippant... It's a tweet that's bound to cause...
Well, he's known for flippancy, isn't he? I mean, you remember the incident with the Thai divers?
That's right, of course.
Extraordinary, where he felt snubbed of his offer of...
That was an outrageous accusation.
Absolutely outrageous. On the other hand, I actually engaged with Elon Musk on Twitter the other day.
Did you?
He actually replied to me,
You're kidding.
No, 14 million followers, I think he has, or
That's
something.
amazing. Did you get a bump in your Twitter follower after that?
I got about... what I got was a huge number of
Simon,
replies basically asking Elon Musk for money. That's clearly what happens.
Okay.
He had just tweeted a thing about... It was a quote by... a well-known American historian. I'm having menopause at the moment. I can't remember the guy's name, but he wrote A History of Civilization. And I said, this is a great book, but it's very long, and I recommend the audio book, read by the wonderful Grover Gardner, who's a narrator. And Elon replied to me, saying, Grover Gardner rocks. So that's been printed out in 48 font now, and that's up on my wall.
He
must be on Twitter a lot then, so the way he responds to people like that. And he courts controversy through it. I think it's having what they call FU money, isn't it? When you're that
271
it's
billion.
It's insane the amount of money. And he clearly doesn't mind. Even if all of them sued him successfully, it would be a drop in the ocean. He doesn't mind.
Why doesn't he cover all the world's problems? Why doesn't he just pay for it all?
Well, you can't do that. He mainly holds stock, doesn't he? But I think he's a good thing on the whole. I do like the idea of trolling through merchandise. I wonder with the whistle thing whether Donald Trump should launch a dog whistle. What do you think?
Well, these kind of things really, really work. I mean, do you remember when Jordan Peterson was compared to an evil villain from the Marvel comics?
Yes.
And he launched a range
Red
of
Skull.
Red Skull. Yeah. And he launched a range of Red Lobster merchandise, which all the proceeds went to charity, by the way. It was a really good cause. He raised an absolute fortune. It's a great way to respond. But I think I would rather say that this is slightly different because these are actually quite serious allegations. So it feels a little bit distasteful, dare I say?
Yeah.
Rona, according to the Mail, you can rent the real Home Alone house. Is that...
God. Listen, my stuff is a complete mess. Yes, the Home Alone, the 1990 movie.
Yeah.
I didn't watch many movies.
1919.
1990.
It's an old
1990.
My glasses,
older than we thought.
my glasses are pressing
from the Spanish flu.
Macaulay Culkin's 112.
Yeah.
I've got a Macaulay Culkin story, but you go first.
Yes, I don't remember much about 1990. But I didn't really watch many movies that year. But yeah, you can... Look, I can't find it, so I'll just have to say what I remember.
Yeah.
Airbnb, surprise, surprise. You can now go and hire the house that was...
We've got an image of the house.
Very
there
house.
It is. There it is, the very house.
There's the exterior shot of that iconic
There was a time
movie.
in the 1990s when an awful lot of mainstream Hollywood movies featured houses this big and luxurious and well appointed. Do you remember even like Steve Martin in Planes, Trains and Automobiles lived in a house?
Yeah, I always thought that all Americans were super rich. And then, you know, but you look at that. I'd rather hire the house from Home Alone 2, which is a much better film because it's got Tim Curry and Brenda Fricker.
Okay.
Right.
But it's not a house, it's a hotel. It's the plaza owned by Donald Trump. And I just checked tonight because I saw this story. It's the top suite, the one that Macaulay Culkin's family stayed in, was $35,000 a night.
Wow.
At the moment, if you get it now.
Yeah.
So I'd rather rent that one if I could, but perhaps not.
I don't understand. I mean, another Airbnb just should be closed down.
Do you not like not
It's a disgrace.
No?
It's an absolute disgrace. These greedy people making money out their
we have a
extra
clip
room.
for you so you can get a taste of the movie. There they are, running around. Essentially, there were some criminals trying to get in, and he tries to kill them.
Yeah, it's a story of childhood
It's basically Carl Rittenhouse, but he's just that little bit younger. So
well, exactly. He does almost kill them. I mean, doesn't he set up a booby trap with a sledgehammer or something?
it's a
I'm going
good-
to tell you
it's
my
a
Macaulay
classic
Culkin
movie.
story. In 1993, I went to New York City to run the New York Marathon. I'd raised enough money that they paid my flight, and that was what I was doing it for, essentially. And I stayed with some friends it was a lawyer who was on secondment over there and staying in a nice apartment block. And it was where Macaulay Culkin, it wasn't the same one, but he had a plaza suite, you know.
Oh, really?
And I was crashed out with jet lag on their sofa at about 10 a.m., having sort of arrived at 6 a.m. with just like... And I was woken by their doorbell going. They opened the door and I heard this voice. I thought that sounds extraordinarily familiar. It was a young boy collecting food for like the Harvest Festival or Thanksgiving or whatever as charity. And my friend Mary, she gave him like a tin of, butter beans or something. And that was Macaulay Culkin. He was going door to door in his own apartment block, collecting food.
This was
1993.
Right, I was in New York 1990, stayed at the wrong Chelsea hotel.
Yes, that's a terrible place. That's where Airbnb was launched in order to save us from. I stayed in the Chelsea hotel once and checked out at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. The noise of the plumbing was so unbelievably loud. Bang, bang, extraordinary. No traces of
I've stayed at the John and Yoko suite in
Leonard
Amsterdam.
Cohen and so on.
Hilton.
So you like staying in celebrity
Well,
suites?
years ago, I wanted to be in the John and Yoko suite when I was young.
Did you ever stay in the Algonquin Hotel where they had the big table where Dorothy Parker used to be witchy with all those, the Algonquin circle?
No.
You can stay there. That's affordable, actually. That's
Okay,
sort of
well,
just
that sounds a lot better
This
than
story
this.
is just an extension of that. It's
No,
people
it's
wanting
not.
to live
It's
out
nothing
the
like
fantasy.
that.
They love the film, so they want to live out their fantasy.
I'm sorry,
You
I'm
can
not
also
allowing
go and
this.
stay.
No,
You know,
not allowing it.
You can also
Airbnb
stay
is
in
closed.
with Nail and I have the house where they go on holiday by mistake. That's now available on Airbnb for
I haven't lived in the house, but I've lived like that.
Yeah, that would be something. Jacob Rees-Mogg is in the news once again, facing an inquiry, with his strange face, an inquiry of £6 million worth of loans. This feels like fairly small beer to me for Rees-Mogg.
This is in the Guardian. And basically, there are calls for him to be investigated, and this is to do with his company, Saliston. And he didn't report to the official register that he'd received directors' loans up to $6 million. And this is the call for this is coming from Tangham Debonair, who's the shadow leader of the Commons.
Tangham Debonair.
It's a great name, isn't
That's
it?
a fantastic. That sounds more like his company than the actual name of his company.
But Debonair is saying that this is an egregious breach of the rules. She's talking about how Conservative MPs repeatedly act as if they can put their private business interests ahead of their constituents. This feels a bit like political point scoring because actually, judging from the rules, the Code of Conduct does not specifically say that it doesn't have anything to do with directors' loans.
No.
And there is no conflict of interest here.
No.
And Rees-Mogg is saying here, he owns this company. It's clearly and this is declared clearly in the Commons Register and to the Cabinet Office. So he's made the declarations he needs to make. The Register is asking for earnings, not for loans. I don't think this is a big
Basically,
deal.
she's just reminding people that he's very, very wealthy and hoping that will turn them against him.
It's also piggybacking on the whole thing about second jobs at the moment, because Labour have made a real point of saying we will ban MPs from having second jobs, and basically that the focus should be on being an MP. They committed to that in their 2019 manifesto. So to be fair, Labour are really committed to this. But they're reminding everyone, look, the Tories are all about wealth and privilege and all the rest of it. And that's
there was one in there, though, and I think it was an SNP MP, I might be wrong, who had failed to declare his earnings as a part-time Sunday football referee.
No, it's Douglas Ross. That's
do you know him?
Tory leader.
Oh, he's a Tory leader,
Scotland.
sorry, right.
Quite a tense man, to say the least.
Is he?
Yeah,
I mean, how much does he earn from that, though? That must be...
I think I can't repeat it, but Frankie Boyle dealt with that brilliantly on his on his show. He was... I couldn't possibly repeat it, but it was...
So what does it... Is this because, the Tories... A lot of Tories are sort of claiming that they can't live on 81,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is... And there is a distinction between the two, isn't there? I think it's 41% of the Tories MPs came from private schools. And so the accusation is, well, they're accustomed to this sort of plush lifestyle. Is the solution just to pay... I mean, I would be more comfortable if MPs were just focused on that one job.
Oh, I agree. I think they should. They should be paid a lot more, and then they should give up all other earnings, at least while they're there, and probably for a moratorium. For
what about writing a book or something like that?
Yeah,
would be okay. And if they gave some of the proceeds to a charitable cause.
Now, this next story is really quite disturbing, I think. It may have been presented in the tabloid as just being quirky, but I don't like it at all. It's the Sun newspaper. They've got a story about a woman who has successfully sued a doctor, claiming that she should never have been born. The doctor should have intervened.
Yes.
And she would never have been conceived.
Yes, that's right. The Sun is going with this story, wrongful conception. It's woman Evie Toombs, who was born with a type of spina bifida, and she has basically won this case against her mother's doctor, Dr. Philip Mitchell, who was taken to court because she claims that if he had advised her mother properly during the pregnancy to take, folic acid, that it could have been avoided. She lives with...
What she says is not that the folic acid would have minimised the chance of her having the spina bifida, but that her mother would have delayed conception, i.e. wouldn't have had sex hoping to have her, if I've read it correctly.
No, absolutely. She's saying it's wrongful conception. She's effectively suing. She's suing because she was born.
So she's saying the doctor should have said something to her mother which would have stopped her trying to have babies. Not taking the folic acid, but to...
I find this really confusing because she's a show jumper. She's someone who's pushed through all of the difficulties that she's faced, and she's even got a motto about this saying, don't make excuses. Get on with your life, whatever throws you. But here she is suing the doctor because she was born. And that seems like...
And it's one. I mean, it's really... This is extraordinarily bad precedent.
But her mobility and all her physical challenges that she also lives with, despite being highly decorated and everything and all the rest of it in her field, are going to get worse as she grows older.
But is it not better to have been born at all than to have been born in... particularly given that she has...
Well, it's a very deep philosophical point.
I was going to say it's a very
Emil
deep
Cioran, who's, I think, Romanian philosopher who writes the best stuff about saying that to have been born at all is a mistake.
Oh, really?
And it's very entertaining, and he's very bleakly pessimistic in a very
on the
way. But
on the other side, you've got Mervyn Peake's poem "To live at all is miracle enough," and I think there is something to. I don't think I'm with you. I think this precedent is very bad. If you can now sue for genetic defects, for all sorts of things that you can say potentially with the fault of a doctor neglecting to mention a certain thing, where does that end?
I'm going to start suing for things. I've got a list. Everybody's just suing left. I'm not even getting any compensation for being on the first series of I'm a Celebrity with a homophobic Bible reader who got to threaten to headbutt me on live TV. But, I never got anything of that.
So we are going to finish now with a less disturbing story, the origin of the Advent calendar. My wife rang up today in a panic because she didn't know where the Advent calendar was, and we live in this today. We've got this little wooden one with little doors on it, that we reuse, absolutely. And she buys... Honestly, the money we waste on the stuff, she buys like Lindt chocolates and stuff.
That's a sweet little tradition.
Well, it is. It's very nice that she couldn't find it. I helped her find it, so I'm back in the good books. But I do think the kids now at 17 and 14 have probably outgrown that, but I don't know at what point. Anyway, The origins, Andrew.
Well, this is a story in the Metro, and this is just giving the background to the Advent calendar. I find it quite interesting because I always go to religious. I come from a religious background. I assumed the Advent calendar was a reminder that the Virgin Mary craved chocolate in the last month of her pregnancy. But you know,
or a lump of coal.
But it's not that apparently. What it is
go on.
No, well, it derives. This is a history of it. And it derives from sort of Germany.
Yeah.
And it talks about. See, I was always very sceptical about the chocolates in Advent calendars because I think the younger generation have it too easy.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, it was a flap, and you might get a sketch of a donkey, and yes, it's a donkey. You'd be really excited.
And then 24, now, the double doors, and you got the actual nativity, and it was quite exciting. And all it was a bigger picture.
But now it's chocolates, Fabergé eggs, air tickets. I don't know what
vaccines,
whatever you get.
Boosters.
Did you guys skip forward to Christmas Day when you were on day one?
No, never. That would be a sin.
Did you do that?
Terrible.
See, delayed gratification.
How dare you talk about Donald Trump's psychopathology when you're
I'm
guilty
adopted,
of things like that?
I was a born addict.
You can't keep using that as an excuse. It's time to start blaming your mother's doctor.
Was it a chocolate Advent calendar?
That's all we got time for, folks. It's been absolutely wonderful joining you this evening. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Rona and Andrew. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Thank you very much. Cheers. Good night.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. Things turning cold out there right now. Frosty for many by morning, and there is the potential for things to be a bit slippery as well. There are ice warnings issued and a little bit of snow in some spots. This area of low pressure is moving away, but it's opened the door to cold air driving south from the Arctic. And where we've got these little weather fronts, they will enhance the showers, and that combination of showers and cold air could lead to some icy conditions. Already across northern Scotland, we've got some snow showers. Down the eastern side of England, a mixture of rain, sleet and snow showers, and the potential also through parts of Wales. You could wake up to a covering here, maybe even into the Midlands, and later on through the night across the southwest of England. So we do have that ice warning in place as temperatures drop down close to freezing. Even in towns and cities, rural areas will be well below. And as well as that ice, there is the likelihood of some sleet and snow for southwest England, Wales and the eastern side of England and northern Scotland. Say snow even to lower levels in some locations. As we go through the day, that mixture of rain, sleet and snow will clear the southwest. The showers will ease along the east coast, although there will always be some. And across northern Scotland, it becomes dry. So for most, it's a dry, fine, sunny day tomorrow. But it will be cold, 3 or 4 degrees at best for most of us. At least the winds, though, will be a little lighter than that biting one that's been blowing through the day today. Then, during tomorrow evening, wet weather returns from the west, and as it hits the colder air, there'll be some snow for a time across Scotland, but even also further south over parts of England and Wales. It could, for a few hours, be a little bit of snow, mostly through the night, however. Perhaps early on Friday across East Anglia and the southeast, and quite quickly any snow will melt and turn back to rain. Quite a grey day then on Friday across the south. Rain clearing, but another spell of rain arriving in the southwest. Further north, though, Friday looks like a bright day with sunny spells and just a few showers, and turning milder across the south.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.